In this video, we will learn how to reduce images into basic shapes, modify patterns, and use simple crochet techniques to make our pieces more detailed. Here we have an engineer from the Alien series. Notice he has gills on his neck, and we can pretty much just reproduce those with front loop only. You can see here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see we put little gills on his details. Here we have leg plates, and I'm just outlining. We can basically replicate this with different pieces layered. We have knee pads, we have 2 separate plates, and so this is how it turned out. You can see the little leg plates, and we can see where there are 2 separate plates on the bottom leg plates. And then we can also see this weird pelvis armor thing. So basically, we want to create a circle, and then we're going to go around each side of that circle and expand it to make that weird hip shape, which we've done. We've recreated that in yarn. They also have these rib-like structures. So again, we start with a basic circle, and then we're going to go outward, and then we're going to layer that with some basic shapes, chains to make it look detailed like ribs. And we just work this in rounds. And so you can see the same thing, a little chest plate, and we even added some little spots for detail here. A few last details on the arms. He also looks like he has like gills. And when again, we can use front loop only to make those gills. And you can see where the arm shape is a little different compared to the rest of the body. In this example, we'll look at some character models from Elden Ring. These celebrants have a pendant, a nice hairband with flowers, a nice detailed belt with 3 layers, and they have a shawl. Here we can see another example of the pendant on the celebrant, and we can see it's a copper wire. We can see another crown of flowers, and this one actually doesn't have to have a hood. We see this one actually has some special residue on her mouth and hands, and also a special residue on the bottom of her gown and on her feet. So when we recreate this, we try to keep the basic essence of the character model. So we have the little headband. We went ahead and made the eyes glazed over. Here is the gray hair and little curls. This is the cape that we saw, the little cape shawl, and it did take forever to make the details on the edge, but it was worth it. And then you can also see the copper wire attached to the pendant. The pendant is a little bit exaggerated because it's a character. It's a little characterization. The belt is the same kind of detail. It has 3 layers. Here's the residue on the feet and on the bottom of the gown. Use fabric paint to make that. And also you see the same residue on the hands and the mouth. And I think she's pretty creepy, but she turned out really cute. For Dracula, we want to note that there's some gold details. He has sleeves and ruffles. And here we see the gold details. They're a little bit simplified compared to the model, but there's only so much you can do in crochet without embroidery. Here's this little ascot. And then we can see his red eyes, his little curls, his white curls. And then we have his sleeves, which I actually did have to put an interface on because I had to make sure to line those. Then we have a lined jacket to mimic that one. I didn't do a cloak because it would be too bulky, but I did also give him some boots with some gold details. Though creativity is always welcome, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you have a pattern that is similar to what you need or similar to a shape that already exists, we don't need to recreate that. We need to learn how to modify that pattern. Now, please remember that anytime you modify a pattern, that does not give you permission to violate copyright laws for that pattern, nor does it give you permission to use that pattern as your own. You'll want to always cite the original source of that pattern, not only to give credit to the person who made it, but also to let others find that pattern and make their own creative works. In this example, we'll look at a brief pattern for a waist on a doll. It's intended to be a pretty cutesy doll, and normally we wouldn't use this pattern for a masculine figure, But because it's a pretty good pattern and it's about the right size we need, we're going to modify it. The first thing we notice on this pattern for the waist, it starts off wide and then we decrease the stitches to narrow the waist and continue that narrow pattern upward. We basically create a feminine waist. Now, if we want to make a more masculine waist, we don't want to suddenly decrease and take in the waist. We want it to be a lot more gradual. We might even want to sprinkle in some additional details like abs or something like that. So in the modified pattern, you can see where we maintain the overall width of the waist, but we also add some decorative stitches to give the illusion of abs. Finally, another tip, if you want to add depth to your patterns, even if you don't modify them, you can use stuffing to make the arms and limbs and other body parts shaped to what you imagine instead of just filling the doll. When modifying patterns, it's important to keep in mind the original intention of the pattern and the type of shape and doll it was intended to create. Let's take, for example, a leg that was made for a delicate, dainty doll. If we want to repurpose this pattern and make it into a more masculine figure, we'll have to make some changes. However, if we just make the leg longer in any given direction, it will end up looking disproportionate and unnatural. We can try to remedy this by extending the leg in both directions. However, once again, it does come off looking unnatural. It's just a very scrawny, long limb, and it's definitely not the masculine shape that we're looking for. To solve this problem, what we can do is not only increase the leg size proportionately and make sure it's anatomically correct, we can also widen the leg size by adding additional stitches to the rows instead of just adding rows. Another important concept is how to use crochet basics to create new shapes and pieces. For example, front loop only can be used to create a number of shapes: a brim of a hat, a collar of a shirt, shirt sleeves, and even boot flaps. Using back loop only, you can create things like a waistband. It can also be used for details like layering cloth, such as making the distinction between boots and pants. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.